Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I think today we can call this episode the Real Estate and Lending episode. Moving into 2022, forecasting what's ahead, in addition to taking a look back at, do we even say it, 2021. So many incredible things going on. Let's have a conversation with the professionals in our area. I'd like to welcome to the show Chelsea Barraco. She's a loan officer with Summit Funding Incorporated. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hi, Karen. Thank you.
So we just met, of course, in a few minutes ago, and we were both like, I know we've met somewhere. And it was, I believe, the Impact Group.
Yes.
Are you a member, or was that your first time attending?
Yes, I am a member of Impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tell me again, Joan is the kind of the leader of that crew?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I met the Impact women through another group that I'm in. It's kind of funny when you're in these networking groups, everybody in them has their own group.
Yes.
Which is a great way to meet people. I'm still relatively new to the Valley, so the more people I can get in front of, the better.
Perfect. So shout out to Joan and all the great people with Impact. And I happened to be there because Jane Powers was speaking, and she asked me to come as a guest. And I told you in the green room, I grabbed business cards. I'm like, yes, we need to have Chelsea on. I feel the dynamic energy and the brilliance coming off this woman. So I'm glad you're here. And you chose to bring a couple good people with you that can help talk a little bit about real estate and hopefully the relationships that you all have together. So I hope you'll welcome to the show with us as well, Jake D'Angelo, who's a realtor with Delex. Is that how I pronounce it?
Delex Realty.
Yeah, Delex Realty. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us how you know Chelsea.
Wow. So me and Chelsea used to be a real estate agent as well.
I saw that in her bio.
And we were on a team of real estate agents before that. So that's how I met her. And I was like, she is a really good agent and a super hard worker. So I kept her in my circle.
I love it. Mm-hmm. Good. And clearly she kept you too, because here you are today.
Yeah, she doesn't have a choice.
That's right. Yeah. I know how that goes. And then also with us, we have Carla Magee, who's a commercial real estate specialist with MHG Commercial. Welcome, Carla.
Yes, thank you.
So nice to meet you. Yeah. So you're going to be, Jake, are you mainly residential?
I am strictly residential.
Strictly residential.
Do not ask me a question about commercial.
Good. And so, of course, you're covering the commercial side of things
Correct.
today.
Commercial and like investment properties, income producing.
Perfect tee-up, perfect team. Chelsea's like, I know. I love it. And Carla, how long have you two known each other, or how did you two get connected?
So in the interim, after leaving Deluxe, she went to another commercial brokerage, which is where I was working at the time, and that's where we met. And then we both have since parted ways from that brokerage, but have stayed in touch.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, great team. We always say bring power partners or happy clients or customers or vendors or someone with you to help kind of accentuate whatever you're going to want to share. And not everybody does that. So I'm glad you took us up on that today. So let's have each of you, and I'll start with Chelsea again, share, just introduce yourself. What do you love to do when you're not working, if that's a thing? And I noticed as I read your bios, you guys are very involved with a lot of philanthropic activities and stuff, which is great. And then Chelsea, you mentioned you have not been in the Valley very long. So tell us where you're from and what brought you to Arizona, and whatever fills your heart to share with us. We'd love to hear from each of you.
Sure. I moved just ahead of the pandemic, which is a rough time to restart in a new location, from upstate New York. I was a real estate agent for 5 years. And I just kind of saw businesses leaving New York State, and the price point really wasn't going anywhere. There isn't a lot of new industry moving into that area. So we're seeing a lot of migration of people out. So I started doing some market research, and Phoenix was one of the fastest growing cities. There's so many companies investing here, so many jobs coming here. The weather is certainly better than upstate
Especially
New
this
York.
time of year.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are all driving factors to, just start fresh someplace else. So as Jake mentioned, I was still a residential agent, came out here. There was a crazy saturation of realtors here in the Valley. And that's why we're here today, because not all of them follow the best practices to serve clients. And Jake and Carla are two people that do an excellent job, and that's why they're here.
Mm-hmm.
So like Carla said, then I tried commercial because I could do that from home. Most of your clients are not local. You can sell over the phone, whereas residential, you really need to be person to person. So that was my pandemic pivot. And then as far as lending, I realized there was a need for a lender that was more compassionate, more education focused, and understood what the struggle of an agent is.
Mhm.
So since I had been an agent, I knew exactly what agents are expecting from a lender. So it was a position that made a lot of sense for me.
Yeah.
So when I'm not working, I do a lot of philanthropic type stuff. So I work with a equine assisted therapy center in Cave Creek. So they serve the special needs population. And then I also work with an equine rescue that takes in abandoned, neglected, abused horses. There was a story just a couple months ago of somebody who just dropped a horse in the desert. And it's just sad. And, anything I can get involved in. There's also a non-for-profit diner in North Phoenix called the Joy Bus.
Yes, familiar.
Yeah, they're amazing. So they prepare really healthy meals for cancer homebound patients in the Valley. So I try to deliver meals with them at least once a month.
Were you interested in equine in New York, or is that a new thing coming to Arizona?
No, I have a background with horses. I rode horses when I was young.
Yeah.
My mom lives near the Saratoga racetrack, so we used to go there every summer. So horses have always been a big part of my life, and it's really amazing when you get to see the change in the special needs population that are utilizing that service.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great. And
Yeah.
we just started, myself and two other kind of power partners, started 100 businesses that care giving circle.
Oh, that's
Cool.
great.
So I'll be sure to give you guys the flyer before you leave. Our first giving circle will be January 19th right here at MAC 6. And the whole idea, of course, is collectively we can have a bigger give. And every quarter when we do this, we'll hear from 3 different 501c3s. And everybody gets to, again, have this new knowledge and understanding of who they're serving and how they're serving the community. And then we
Wow.
vote on one. And then everybody who's a member will make a commitment to donate at $250 from their business each quarter. So we'd love to
Oh, that's
invite you to be
awesome.
part of
Very
it. Yeah.
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 That's a
So,
cool idea.
and I think you're involved. I haven't had a chance to look at Carla's information, but I think Jake's involved with some charities as well. So as a member, then you nominate whichever one is important to you, or you go find one if you don't have one, and then hopefully they'll get to be a recipient and you get to be part of that give. So anyway, I
love
just
that.
wanted to give
That's
that a shot. Yeah,
awesome.
it's so
That
fun.
is
I've
really
been part
cool.
of the Women's Giving Circle. I don't know, Carla, you've been here for a little longer than Chelsea. How long have you
Yes.
been here?
Well, the first time I came to the Valley was in 1996.
Oh,
And then that boy and I broke up. So I went back to Seattle, went to college, all the things. And then we moved back down here 2014.
mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. So fairly, kind of new-ish.
Kinda,
We're
yeah.
back again.
Right.
So there's a women's giving circle that's several different locations in the Valley, and I've been part of the Awatuki Women's Circle, and so one of the founders and then another friend, we all said, we need a business one. So we're excited to launch. I'll include you guys in that opportunity.
Please do.
Let's hear from both of you. Jake, if you don't mind starting, just
Sure.
introduce yourself. What are you interested in outside of real estate?
Yeah.
And what are you passionate about, and why real estate?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. Okay. So originally I was born in Jersey. We moved around quite a bit. We actually lived here. So my mom and dad met in Arizona. So this has always been home in my heart. Like I always wanted to come back, but I grew up in Oregon, not too far from you, Carla. And basically what I like to do outside of real estate, given the time, I'm not a big sports guy. I'm not the biggest like manly man you'll meet. I know I don't like beer. I don't like sports except for mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and stuff so UFC type stuff. So I absolutely love that. I got to get back into doing jiu-jitsu because I am putting on some pounds. Yeah.
We call them the COVID pounds. Are we allowed to blame
We
it
can-
on
Can we
COVID?
still blame it on COVID?
Absolutely. I'm going to be
it's
doing
been
that
like
for a
2
while.
years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
So music, I would like to get back going to local fights and stuff like that. But I have 3 dogs, had a cat, but she took off. I know it's a bummer.
It was the dogs.
It wasn't. They love her. They love her. I don't know where she went, but I have 3 dogs. So dogs are very close to my heart. So I love giving to nonprofit animal shelters. Yeah.
Your dogs are all rescues too, right?
They are all. Yeah. Every single animal I've had has been a rescue.
That's
We
awesome.
have our
Yeah.
first rescue. She'll be 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
It's been quite an experience. She was a puppy.
Mhm.
Oh,
Still kind of a puppy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. From 18 pounds to 18 pounds to now, like, I think 79 pounds.
Ooh,
Yeah.
What kind?
She's we think I probably should do the genealogy on
Mhm.
her, but she is a healer shepherd mix.
Mhm.
mhm.
So very active.
High energy.
Yeah.
High
Yeah.
energy. Very smart.
You know, I did that genealogy test.
And
It came back as pit bull mix.
You did or your dog?
No, well, I did. I'm out of here.
Right. And mic drop.
Yeah. No, it was,
that didn't really tell you much.
No, it told me exactly what I knew.
Right.
So I don't know.
Interesting.
Hopefully you have better luck than I did.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
And because everybody they look at her, and I'm not familiar with dogs. So
Mhm.
while you have had a love for dogs for a long time, this is new for me. My 14-year-old is the last one home with me, and he's like,
Mhm.
I really want a dog. I'm like, okay. Yes. So but I fall in love with her. She's become
They're
my
awesome.
pal. Yeah. Okay. So why real estate for you? Like why is this and for how long? Why is this your thing?
Well, so going into my 5th year, I believe it is. So to sum it up, this is the great question I believe everybody should be asked this. I use real estate as a vessel to provide for my family and my dogs. Why I chose real estate to do that is I used to be a volunteer firefighter for 6 years. And since I stopped doing that, there was a void. Both of my parents were in the medical field. So giving and helping people has always been really important to me. I didn't realize how important that was until after I stopped. So I thought to myself, well, what can I do to earn an income and actually help people? So I guess it's selfish. I do it because I'm selfish, because I like helping others, because it makes me feel good.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why.
I love it. And as I'm sure one of you or all of you might say later on, real estate transactions are one of the most stressful
Mhm.
times of people's lives,
Mhm.
as is firefighting.
Mhm.
So how natural for you? I mean, it seems like a different shift, but how natural for
Sure.
you that you're already supporting people when it's a lot of
Mhm.
chaos and, heavy decision making
Yep.
oftentimes. And
Exactly. Yeah, they're very similar.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you have to be their everything.
yeah.
Their coach, their not lawyer, but
Therapist.
the
Make
therapist. Yeah, that's
Suggestions.
yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a complete world of chaos that you have to diffuse.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty similar.
yeah, good. Carla.
Hi. So I'm originally from the Seattle area, Washington State. I went to UW, go Dogs. Then I had my 2 kids. So I originally worked for Boeing, and then my first daughter came, and I was on their military program on a high clearance project, and it wasn't as satisfying as it was when I was pregnant with her or when we were trying to have her. And all I wanted to do was spend time with her. And in Seattle, the hour and a half commute
Ugh.
each way was not conducive to being at home with a newborn.
Mhm.
So I took a sabbatical to be at home with her and kind of reevaluate what I wanted to be when I grew up. And real estate was a very natural fit because my husband and I had flipped a couple houses and we had kind of done it, and I knew what our experience was. And I wanted to provide better service for people. And then utilizing my finance degree and my project management background, commercial just became a natural fit, helping people with their commercial properties, investment properties, income producing, all the things. I call myself the gray area of real estate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the areas that no one else would mark
Right.
themselves,
Right.
but there's a niche, there's a need there.
Definitely a need there. And a lot of times it's first-time investors or newer investors. So they're very apprehensive.
Mhm.
They need that same coaching, the same, you can do this, but just with different types of properties.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Really great. Let's talk about 2021. And we don't have to be round robin.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit back and listen. But what can you tell us about 2021 that was unique, maybe worrisome? And then we'll talk about 2022 and what we can expect. But when we reflect back, I mentioned before we went on air that I sold my home. I
Mhm.
just went through a divorce. It's been a year, and I had been in that home for 24 years.
Wow.
And Chandler raised all 3 of my kids there.
Wow.
Really hard decision. But if there was a time to do it, it's when I did it.
Mhm.
Correct.
And I'm grateful that I did in the way it worked out. But that's not everybody's story, right? I chose to go into a rental because that was what made the most sense right now. I would not have been in a position to get even half the size of a place
Mhm.
for what I was paying for my mortgage. But again, I had, motivational reasons why I did what I did. So
Right.
what are you hearing? What did you experience? What was it like? And then let's transition to, all right, well, what's ahead for us? Can we expect the same? So who wants to start us off?
Well, I was going to say that the thing I heard most is that the bubble was going to pop, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So at some point, and this year was going to pop, but here we are.
Still
It's
trudging
not-
along.
Yeah, it hasn't.
Oh,
It
yeah.
hasn't popped.
Yeah. So, I mean, because the market has been so hot for the last 2 years, particularly this summer, I mean, we saw people paying 100,000 over ask price, with an appraisal waiver and no inspection, no contingencies whatsoever. I mean, this summer it was just wild.
Yeah.
Which means no protection
Exactly.
whatsoever
Correct.
for the buyer.
Right.
Just to be clear, yes.
Yep.
So, I mean, and those conditions obviously scare people. They scared a lot of buyers out of the market completely. A lot of people just kind of had to continue to rent because they didn't have the money to throw over asking. And that freaks people out because they think of 2008. But the truth is the market conditions and the reason for the last crash are so far away from where we're at right now. Lending is night and day from where it was in 2008.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It has legs this time around.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, when I'm pre-qualifying people who've bought homes before, a lot of times you're met with this animosity, well, why do you need all this stuff? I didn't need this last time. Well, that's why. Because we want to make sure you keep your house and you can make your payment. We can verify your income. You actually are employed. You do have money in your bank account. Because of all those protections, that keeps us from having that kind of crisis again.
I think it's worth noting, too, that in the previous market, when people were bidding those houses up, there were these arbitrary numbers because the lenders at the time, they just put a second mortgage on it. It just, you could make up whatever number you wanted. Well, now, if you're going to do that, you actually need to have the cash and the capital to be able to make that gap up. So you can't just make the numbers up anymore. There has to be something behind it. So now people have a lot of their own equity, their own skin in the game into their home, whereas before it was just kind of well, I made it up and now I just have a loan. So
whose line is it anyways?
Right,
The points don't matter.
No,
And so can we talk about that? What happened back then? Why did they have to change the way things? I mean, it got nasty for a while there.
Well, people were completely underwater on their mortgages because the mortgage didn't match the value of the home. Short sales and foreclosures were huge. I mean, out here we don't see as many of them. Also because the cash for houses market is crazy out here. It's an amazing opportunity for investors. Wholesaling is huge out here. But also, like Carla said, people have more equity in their homes now than they ever have. And the values of homes have gone up so rapidly. I'm refinancing people who bought 7 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Because they already have that much equity in their home.
Really?
Right, to drop their PMI or anything like that.
So we talked about, 2008 and the problems that were there and how it's different this time around. You mentioned, though, I can't remember who it was, that some, with the height of the pricing and everything, how fast things were going and how people were making offers this summer, you mentioned that it hasn't slowed necessarily. The prices are still up, but some people, they just can't compete with those who are ready to say, I can do this, this, and that, right? So are the prices still as high as they were in the summer? Do you see it slowing down? Tell us a little bit about where are we simmering and hovering right now?
I think we're slowing.
Okay.
But I mean, the last year has been crazy, right? So we were not going skyrocketing up like we were before, where price changes were just going up and up and up every week. If there was a new home construction, they would give new pricing every week. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. But now, I mean, we've been kind of slowly heading towards a balanced market.
But not a crash, not a crash. Hit bottom.
Nope.
But days on market are a little longer. It's
Right.
not like on the first day there's 70 offers.
You're
If it's in a certain area and price point, you might still have that, but it's not happening on every single house.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like now you're battling against maybe 2 or 3 offers as opposed to 15 to 20.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Still good because you only need one good offer.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, the market is still great for sellers, and it's getting better for buyers as well, too. So balanced market means everybody's happy.
Right. And now those buyers that backed out last year because they didn't have the cash to come over asking now can be competitive again.
Yep. It's just, exactly. This is the same situation that my sister and brother-in-law are in, right? They didn't want to buy last year. They couldn't.
It was scary.
It was scary. And they're because they lost their home in 2008 or 9 or whatever it was. And so they were afraid to do that again. But now we're actively looking. So it's just, to your point, it's like, people weren't ready yet last year for all that craziness. I mean, neither were we,
Right.
but things are changing and I think it's really good.
Yeah. Speak to commercial real estate because I know the landscape is different than residential to some degree. What are the differences and what's going on there?
Well, I mean, in commercial real estate, we don't have the same offer process. It's a little bit more relaxed, more casual, I'd say. In residential real estate, it's very formal. There's a purchase offer made on the house and everybody kind of puts their best foot forward. In commercial, we do an LOI process, which is letter of intent, or it's just a verbal conversation. But we still have low inventory on the commercial side too. There's clients we can't find anything for, especially those that are looking in like the Southeast Valley. So it's not a matter of like in residential where they're bidding each other up, or there's nothing to bid on, right? So even if they wanted to offer some sweet, enticing offer, there's nothing out there. It's more specific for them too, like a restaurant that needs a drive-through, or or a company that like a physician's office. They need to be built out for a physician's office, and then there's zoning that we deal with too.
Right.
So our pot narrows and grows smaller and smaller depending on what they're looking for.
In the introduction, you mentioned that you help folks with their investment properties. For you, when you help them, is that you're helping them with investment commercial properties, or they're flipping, or is it a variety? Is it strictly commercial?
It's a variety. So it just kind of depends. Everybody's got, a different plan, right? For some people, that's a short-term rental, which is usually a residential property, whether it's a condo or, a house in Scottsdale or something like that they want to Airbnb or VRBO. Sometimes it's multifamily properties, which is your apartment buildings. Typically, when you think of apartment buildings, you think of the very large stuff that they're building, but we're even talking duplexes and fourplexes,
And the
which
boutique,
which are still considered residential properties.
And the demand for those is absolutely
Yeah.
huge.
It's
crazy,
here.
yeah.
That's where we're still getting bid out. I mean, there's only like 130 on the market right now as it is, let alone the investors coming from wherever they're coming from, some of them local. They're bidding each other out. So I'm still seeing that there's no slowdown in sight.
Yeah. What's attractive for an investor for those? It's easier to manage and not as risky, or
For
like
the multifamily?
yeah,
For the small
yeah, the
multifamily?
smaller multifamily.
It's easier to understand from a finance standpoint, unless you have more of like a financial background than investing in a medical building, or deciding that you're going to go for restaurant space. Or a lot of people that join like investor classes, the first thing they learn about is short-term rentals or small multifamily properties like a duplex or triplex, fourplex. And those you can also get with traditional financing. So it's easier for someone who wants to buy their first investment property to be like, hey, I'm just going to get like a regular loan from my lender on a duplex. I mean, if you live in a unit, you're getting the same rates as somebody buying a house. So that could be an awesome house hack. Carla's definitely helped some first-time investors with house hacking, which is also like
It's a whole
huge,
topic, yeah.
sexy market here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you define that? That's
So
talk about that.
House hacking is living in your property that you're also producing income on. And it can mean a little bit different for everybody, but use a duplex, for example. You live on one side and you rent the other side. So say for even numbers, say your mortgage is $2,000, right? And you rent the other side for $1,500. Now you only have a $500 mortgage payment and someone else is covering, your bills essentially. You got all the same residential benefits that you would if you bought a single family house. You can get in as low as 3.5 or 5% versus your 20 or 30 or 35%. So that's what's making it super sexy and super attractive right now, is that people want to be able to live in one, utilize those benefits, and then rent the other.
Yeah.
It's a great first step into it.
It really is. And you can do that up to 4 units, up to a fourplex.
Where you're living in one. So it's your dwelling, the primary.
Yeah.
And then, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, like on a 4-unit with FHA financing, you're only putting 3.5% of the purchase price down.
Yeah.
And you're getting a regular par interest rate.
And to what Carla said, as opposed to an investment property that you're not living on, it's how much? It's
at least 20.
25%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Long-term rentals. When we talk about long-term and short-term rentals, I know it's become at least more visibly more popular because of all the apps that we have available to match people up, right? And do you work with short-term rentals for your clients then?
I do.
Yeah.
It's a niche because you need to understand what communities allow it. There's a lot of HOA guidelines, there's city guidelines, there's state guidelines. It's not as easy as just I like
putting it
that
out
house
there.
and it
Yep.
has a pool, so I'm going to rent it out.
Yeah.
That there's more that goes into it, as well as, there's still an analysis financially, like, does it make sense?
Mhm.
But people house hack with short-term rentals too. I have a client, I sold him and his wife a house on a VA loan,
Mhm.
right? So he has 0 down. I think his mortgage payment was 16 and some change, and it had a casita type apartment that he rents for $1,300 a month. And
Yep.
so now his bill is only $300 a month. And because it was VA, he literally has no
Nothing.
money into
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Just closing
Yeah.
costs.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
My client
Yeah.
just did that too, actually. She
Yeah.
just she bought a house with a tenant in place.
Nice.
That didn't work out. So now
Oh.
she's Airbnbing that casita.
There you
And
go.
making a ton of money.
Yeah.
The tenant
good
was
for-
already there when she bought the
Tenant was
property.
there
In
when
the
it- yep.
casita.
Yeah, but then decided, okay, well, we're going to make this work, and shifted how she's doing it.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
she wanted to keep her, but then just had to reevaluate what was going on, and now she's Airbnb-ing it.
With
It's a great spot.
Yeah, with so many people working from home now and
Mhm.
more mobile and
Mhm.
more nomad-like,
Yeah, right.
I would imagine that, again, it's an opportunity for folks who wouldn't normally find themselves in some sort of real estate investment willing to put themselves out there, because it feels like there's more opportunity there.
I feel like that's part of what happened in 2021. Why
Definitely.
part of why we saw that huge spike. There were so many people at home in the snow or the
Mhm.
rain who were like, my company just told me I'm working permanently from home. Why am I here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Why do I pay, the taxes in Oregon?
Yep.
Why do I put up with this weather that I hate? I
Mm-hmm.
really want to live in Arizona and work from there. And, I saw a lot of clients come down for that reason alone.
Yeah. Huge migration. And then we also have tons of snowbirds here.
Oh, that too.
And then being that rates were in the 2s, people in really high price markets like
Mhm.
Chicago were like, well, I can do a cash out refi on my home, take $80,000 worth of equity out and put that as a down payment on a second home
Yeah.
someplace warm and be there. So that drove our market up a lot too. And then the other thing with COVID is travel nurses and doctors
Yep.
who are getting paid almost
Yes.
double what they
Mhm.
normally would. And they can be a great tenant base to tap into if you're going to do a short-term rental, because a travel nurses, they got a contract that's paying for their living
Mhm.
situation, which is usually a pretty hefty price.
Yeah.
And they aren't going to be home, and they aren't kind of wrecking your property the way somebody who actually is
Right.
renting it long term is going to be.
Mhm.
So that's an excellent kind of client base to go after if that's
Mhm.
what you're considering.
It's like
really
a person
smart.
paying for a gym membership that doesn't go.
Right.
That's like the
Do you,
perfect
do
thing.
you know
Ideal.
anything about
I
that,
don't know
Jake?
anything
No, not
about
at all.
my 2 memberships that I have. That was happening locally here too. I mean, people were working from home, and then they realized, hey, I've got too many kids, or we have not enough space in this house for all of us.
Right.
One of us got to go, or
Right.
we find a new house. So I spent so much time last year and still in this year in Maricopa, because people are just going further and further out, and you can get your
Right,
more
that's where
bang
all-
for your buck
Yep.
out there. And so that's one thing I didn't even think about. But yeah, I was in Maricopa all the time.
Yeah. Santan.
Yep.
Mhm.
All the outskirts of the
And it's all
Buckeyes.
new and shiny,
Uh-huh.
and
Oh, yeah.
everybody loves it, right? That's great first time buyer
Yep.
area.
Can get a bigger house for the
Yeah.
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the topic of people relocating to the state, what we're seeing a lot, Jake and I even have a client right now kind of dealing with this, is people are selling their home in another state or another part of town and then trying to buy here, and trying to purchase with a contingency is pretty much still
It's
not
tough.
going to happen. So it's like, what do you do in the gap between?
Yeah.
So we have Summit has a buy now, sell later program where debt from your existing property isn't counted against you in your
Oh.
DTI, in your debt to income ratio. So that can be helpful. So then you're purchasing without a contingency, but you do have to have your current property under contract.
Oh.
But being the way the market is, that's as long as you list your house, it's
gonna
pretty much
sell.
going to sell.
Right.
But because there are some people that kind of are caught in between, Carla actually had this brilliant idea with a short-term rental for people that are between their old home and their new home.
Yeah. So my husband and I bought a house recently, an additional house to use as a short-term rental. So I call it a long short-term rental,
Mhm.
right? So currently I have a couple in there from North Carolina, and they just kind of put all their chips on the table and they're moving to Arizona, but they had nowhere to go. So they're renting our house through the end of February. People who wanted to capitalize on the market and sell their house, but where are they going to go next? Well,
Yep.
they need something for a few months, so they'll stay at our house.
Mhm.
You can do that with the Airbnb and VRBO, but it's super expensive
Yep.
because you're paying vacation rental prices. But the people who would do a long-term rental don't want to rent to you because you're only for a few months.
Right.
So I met this need that was in between, and I charge in between as
Yeah.
well. So
Mhm.
it's lucrative for us, but it's also filling a need that was definitely out there.
Yeah, and
Huge
if you
need.
think about like a cross-country move, I mean,
Right.
you usually just pack all your stuff in a pod. Like if you were going to go to an apartment or like an extended stay hotel, there's nowhere to put that thing. At least at a place like Carla's, you
Right.
can park it in the garage or in
Yep.
the
In the
the
driveway.
driveway until you find a house.
Well, and not even any apartments right now are doing. You used to
Mhm.
be able to get an apartment for
Right.
6 months while you were trying to work this out, but the rental market is even
It's even crazier.
crazier than the housing
It's
market.
crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like insane.
I
Yeah.
so badly wanted to get like a tweener house like that because I had
I'm
some
so
clients.
gonna name it
Yeah,
that.
I
do
was
it.
just going to say, I like that.
I don't think I patent or I
Oh,
trademarked
I'm gonna
that.
make a note.
go
Yeah,
for it. Because I had some clients in Maricopa
right.
and they sold their house because it was top of the market,
Yeah.
and then now they're living with friends and
Right.
waiting for a new build.
It's brutal.
I
Yeah.
felt-
Well,
I
you
felt
can tell
bad.
me about the next one, and they can come.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll be available in March.
All right,
Yeah.
I like that.
Build up your
Right.
offerings.
I'm
in
gonna need to
several
buy
different-
another one.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. The other kind of group that I'm thinking about are transplant families that are coming out to the Mayo Clinic or anywhere. We're
Right.
really becoming one of the medical and health meccas
Yeah.
of the country again.
Mhm.
Or not again, but we continue to bring in large hospitals and those
Yeah,
sorts of things.
Banner
And-
Health is one of the state's biggest employers.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And so those families that are coming out and they need to be close to their loved one and they're not sure how long it's going to be. And
Right.
some of the hospitals will provide some of the housing, but it's very limited and they don't know how long those people are going to stay. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great area to focus on and to continue to help not only you offer that for yourself as
Right.
an investment property owner, but also then teach your clients how to do it.
Correct.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And you're helping people at the same time.
Right.
You know, you're
Yes.
providing, yeah.
Right.
you're
It's a
providing service.
win-win. And
Absolutely.
not to knock Airbnbs or VRBOs, because they're there as a business as
Sure.
well. But if
Yeah.
you're renting it long term, it does get costly.
Mhm.
Sure.
And so there was part of me that was like, I could charge that. I
Yep.
chose not to because I wanted to still make it attainable and help
Mhm.
people out.
Yeah.
Fair.
Chelsea, talk to us more about lending and what's happening. You mentioned a couple of great opportunities now, but what else what can you share that's going to be positive in 2022?
Are
Well-
the rates going down, Chelsea? We need to know.
So rates are not going down. If anything, they're actually going to inch up. I mean, the twos that we saw in 2020, the housing market basically stepped in to support the rest of the economy when
Right.
everything else stopped. So I would be shocked if that ever happens in any of our lifetimes again.
Don't you think a rate increase is overdue, though?
Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
we've needed it for a while to
Yeah.
kind of correct.
So, I mean, I think maybe by the end of 2022, we might be seeing more fours, but we aren't going to jump up to anything crazy.
Mhm.
I mean, my parents bought their first home in the 80s at a 14% interest
Mhm.
rate. I mean, granted, the price of the house was like 85 grand,
Right.
but, we are still really fortunate with where rates are. So that said, that's one of the pushbacks that I get from clients all the time because there's all of these like big box lenders out there like Loan Depot and Rocket Mortgage that people will be like, well, I saw, 3%. So just because you saw it doesn't mean it actually exists.
Yeah, I can write it down on a piece of paper.
Sure.
I'll give you whatever you want.
And I think what people don't understand is that interest rates are directly related to credit,
Mhm.
which is why credit is so important. So your interest rate, you get a favorable interest rate by showing the bank that you are a lower risk, that you're more likely to repay the loan and pay it on time. So the things that damage credit most that I see are late payments. People don't really understand how important it is to pay everything on time. Credit Karma and some of those sites don't pull credit the same way we do when
Mhm.
we're analyzing someone's credit file. The late payments are like really the big mark that we can't do anything about. Like I can kind of look at what your debts are and see what we can exclude, see what we can move around. But if you have a history of continually making late payments, the only thing that solves it is paying them on time and the passage of time. Like we need to get at least 6 months to a year.
I was just going to ask, how long is it before
and
you can show that
it's usually
traction?
closer to a year, unless you have, great reserves, really strong and low DTI. Poor credit will really make things more difficult for you.
What counts as reserves?
What counts as reserves?
Yeah, like
assets, cash,
401k, savings account.
Yep, you can borrow out a 401k. Stocks, to some extent, it's not 100%, but they have a ratio of what is considered liquid that you can use as an asset.
I've seen Bitcoin be used.
Really?
Yep.
Moving up with the
Yep,
times.
I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cashed it out to buy a house.
Wow.
Interesting.
There's
So
title companies that'll let you buy houses now with
Is it?
with
interesting.
Really?
with cryptocurrencies.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you get an interest rate, the one you're first quoted is a par rate. So when someone says, well, I heard I can get a 3, yeah, I can get you to a 3, but it's going to cost you money. It's called a buy down. So what a lot of those companies are saying when they offer somebody a rate without even fully like underwriting them as a borrower is they aren't disclosing to you what it's going to cost.
Right.
So yes, maybe their rate beats mine, but the rate that I'm quoting you is the one that I think is in your best financial interest.
And that buy down, that price they pay, that isn't applied to anything, right? That's just money
That's
out of
just
your
the
pocket.
rate. That's
Yep.
not closing costs. That's not
Nope.
down payment. That's not fees.
And-
And then a lot of the larger companies, also have substantial fees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hefty.
and may or may not be disclosing that from the word get-go.
Right,
So it
not-
sounds
not in
very
their
appealing.
Facebook ad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Certainly
definitely
not
not.
there, and maybe not even that first initial, let's, get us your information and we'll tell
Right.
you
They
where
want to
we're
get you
at.
on the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, I think that's people don't really realize that a loan is tailored to you,
Right.
right? All the numbers that come out of thin air, like that's dedicated to you and your specific situation.
Right. And that is completely true. So when people are like, well, my brother-in-law got this rate, well, his credit, his debt, everything is completely different from what
Yeah.
yours is.
Right.
It's like those silly credit card offers that come in the mail,
Yeah.
and it says, "Oh, you can have $500,000. Just here's that check. Just sign it, and it's yours."
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, already pre-made out
yes,
to you.
right,
Yeah.
already made out to you, and then right. People are like, I couldn't get that. Well,
Right.
why
Weird.
not?
I wonder why.
Because, yeah.
It's strange how that
Yeah.
happens.
And again, to compare it to 2008, when some crazy things like that were happening,
Those
even
really
just on
were.
the
Stated
financial,
income.
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating. What happened? I thought to ask that you. So we talked about credit issues. It takes about 6 months to a year to really show that you are making payments on time. I know what I was going to ask. Is that on like any payments, like a phone, cell phone bill,
So
a
it's
utility?
actually, when we're looking at a file, it's just those ones that are reported to the credit bureaus. So it's usually any charge cards, any lines of credit that you have, and auto.
Mhm.
Your auto loan that's the easiest way. Like pay that on time all the time. The self-reported telecom, they help a little bit, but not as much. And then, and anything else, like if you have collections, if you've got anything behind, you really got to take care of it. And then liens and judgments, those will appear on the credit report too. A lot of times people aren't aware of them, which is why you'd really need to meet with a local lender who's going to take the time
I
to
was
sit
just
down
going to
with you.
ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, going over someone's individual credit file with them is probably the most important part of my job, because that's where we're going to find anything that could create a problem later.
Yeah.
So I don't want to issue a pre-qual without really thoroughly looking that over before I hand it off to Jake and Carla and send them out to drive somebody around for a couple of weeks and burn their gas money and waste their time only to have the deal blow up once we get into underwriting.
Tell us about student loans.
So student loans, what exactly do you want to know?
Well,
about
like,
student loans?
so they're in forbearance right now, right? Or they're deferred, correct, from due
Yeah.
to COVID. So how do you guys look at that, and like how much weight do they have on someone's overall credit package?
They're still counted. The forbearance really isn't doing anyone any favors when qualifying.
Even though they're not technically making a payment, and they
Correct.
feel like it's freeing
Yeah,
up that
Because they
money.
know it's coming.
The
Right.
whole,
The
the
payments
whole
are-
Right.
forbearance thing has really thrown a wrench in everything, because people don't really understand it and the implications of it. So even people coming out of mortgage forbearance, because every bank structured them differently, people aren't really sure how to get back on track.
Yeah.
I believe for the most part, it's 3 months of payment once you come out of forbearance, and then you just continue on, and then the balance is tacked on to the end of your loan. Some had a balloon payment, which really isn't in anybody's best interest.
No.
If you just came out, if you needed to not pay your mortgage because you didn't have a job,
then,
where are
like,
you going to have this
dump
extra money?
15,000.
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Right.
That's a 2008-ish
Yes.
thing
That
going
is
on
a
right there.
2008-ish
Yeah.
thing.
But it's still that still is out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I was going to college, I won't say how long ago, but I was told, go ahead and take out student loans. They don't count towards your credit. And then when my husband and I went to buy our first house, I found out that was not true.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That was not an accurate story. And I wonder if that's what they're still telling people, to go ahead and take out student loans because they don't
Yeah, I
count
hope
towards
not.
credit.
Medical debt is less of an
Yeah.
issue because pretty much everyone has encountered it. But student loan debt it's just still debt.
It's still just debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always said it's good debt because it shows you'll make more income. But I don't know. I've met a lot of unemployed college graduates, so
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that has changed.
How about paying rent and paying rent on time? Does that help?
Yes. So Fannie Mae actually made timely rental payments part of the risk reduction in their underwriting guidelines this year.
Good.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, so that's huge.
Oh, just this year?
This year,
Yeah.
2021 or for 2022?
2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who reports
Yeah,
that?
that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
You stole my question.
Sorry.
So a lot of apartment complexes give you the option to report that, like through their billing system.
But I wonder, for someone who's not like through a mega apartment
Mhm.
complex, they're renting from a duplex
Yeah.
like we were
yeah,
talking
you
about.
would
or-
probably have to request rental receipts from your
Yeah.
landlord, and then those could be sent in to your loan officer
like
as
manually
part of your file.
applied.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Mhm.
people, when you think about underwriting, when I was an agent, I used to just think about it as like this machine that hated everything I sent
Mhm.
in. And it's actually like a
You
group
mean
of
it's
people.
not?
What I love about where I'm at Summit is I can walk down the hall and talk to my underwriting team about a scenario. It's really helpful for self-employed borrowers or people that don't have a lot
Correct.
of work history, but you can tell that their income is going up. If you make a case for your borrower and you can show everything, the more documentation and everything we have, and you can like physically produce that, a lot of times they're willing to work with you.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
it's helpful to
Humanizes
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if you use like a large bank, that loan officer probably doesn't have that relationship. Your
No.
file's going to get declined. Then you're sent back to, you got to go to another bank and start the process all
The
over again.
underwriters.
Then
like
Chelsea's got
Oz.
to bail them all out
Yeah.
at the end of the
That's right. Yeah.
transaction.
I do. I feel like the underwriters, like, Oz behind the curtain,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and no
Yeah.
one really knows
When you're an
where
agent,
it
that's
comes
what it
from.
feels like.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now, how great that you've made the
Yeah.
transition, and you
Yeah.
can say these are real people who
Mhm.
care about real stories, and they just need to know that there's not a huge risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you can show that,
Mhm.
then they're good. How soon before someone starts looking for a home should they connect with a loan officer?
Well, I would say if you're in a lease, I would probably plan at least 4 months ahead because you usually have to give a 60-day notice.
Mhm.
And then that way, if you've got a problem that you need to solve financially, you have time, or you can just be like, all right, this is a longer term situation.
Mhm.
Then if you get pre-qualified, you got time to start shopping. You got an idea of what your price point is. I encourage people to make a budget, which not all loan officers do,
Boo.
but because I was an
Nobody likes doing that.
But it's
because I
so
was an
smart.
agent,
It's so important.
like if you just issue a pre-qual and somebody goes out there and starts
Yep.
shopping at the top of their price point, they aren't thinking about heat, gas,
Yep.
groceries, everything else in life. Like your house isn't going to take care of you. And if you're paying that max price,
Yep.
Then
and you
your
don't have
house
any money
poor.
left over.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's something that I like to cooperate with agents on is like, where do they want to be at? Where do they want that monthly payment to be at? And then they have time to go shop and write offers. And usually, but with that timing, by the time their house closes, you don't make your first mortgage payment for 2 months after.
Mhm.
So you've got time to move and
Yeah.
issue your notice and you aren't overlapping a mortgage and a rental payment.
The theme that I'm hearing from all three of you is educating,
Mhm.
educating
Mhm.
your clients all the time through stories and examples and preparedness.
Yeah.
So you say you want to be here, but this is what's happening. These are your behaviors right now.
Yep.
And while you're shooting for this in 4 months or 6 months, you got to do X, Y, Z, and then you'll be ready to do it. And how
Right.
grateful I'm sure your clients are that you are
We hope
willing
so.
to, again, walk alongside them. Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably the hardest part of the job, or what I take to heart the most. It's like
Mhm.
there's so many people that are renting right now, and they want to get a house, but they don't know that how close they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just right there for so many people that it's the biggest part of my job is educating people.
Right.
It's like, yes, you guys can do it. Trust me.
Helping them get over that emotional
Yes.
hurdle of kind of making that first
Yep.
step.
Yeah. And it's
Mhm.
so rewarding when that all pans out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it is a lot more work, but it's the juice is worth the squeeze. It's so rewarding.
I think too, people get really scared because one of the first things I know I say, I'm sure you
Mhm.
do too, is you should really call a lender,
Mhm.
right? You should really call Chelsea and find out where you're at financially because that gives us a better idea and helps us do our job for you better.
Mhm.
And there's something about that initial phone call that
Mhm.
seems to really freak them out. Like if they just even have a conversation with her, that's going to commit them
Yeah.
to
Like,
something.
whoa, what do
Yeah,
you,
whoa.
I'm locked
Yeah.
in?
I'm not
Yeah.
applying for
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
here. Yeah. And it's like, no, we're just talking.
Yeah.
We're just having a conversation. We're making sure you understand everything from a financial standpoint.
Which is critical before you make your decision, or you're picking houses or property,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and
investment property.
you really in this market can't shop at all without a pre-qual. I mean,
Nope.
it's not an efficient use of time
Yeah.
for an agent to be out there driving somebody around because the house is going to go under contract before they ever get a chance to get their
Mhm.
finances
Oh,
You'll be in a
together.
position you fall in love with it and think you like it, but if you
It
don't have all of
happens.
your ducks in a row, of course it
Yeah,
does, right?
you can't. I mean, it's part of the contract to have a pre-qual or proof of funds. So you're like, oh, I love this house. Let's offer on it. No, we can't.
Yeah.
You got to talk to a lender, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Every market is different,
Mhm.
right? And that's the Phoenix metro market. I know that like there's a lot of information and education about real estate in general. And like, where'd you get this story? Where'd you get that? And they're like, well, from Facebook, because my brother
And-
lives in
yeah.
Florida,
Yeah.
and that's this isn't the same market. Like, so part of the battle is educating them on the way Phoenix works, right?
Right.
What our market looks like, what we need. Well, why do I need a pre-qualification to go look at a house? I didn't when I lived in Texas. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, because here you do.
Right.
It's super competitive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's different on the real estate contract. It's different
Yeah.
as far as lending. Arizona's a state that has its own pre-qual.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, in other states, like when I was in New York, you got a letter that just said this person can buy up to this amount, and it was a totally different thing. So the format's different. So sometimes when you see pre-quals from other states, they aren't even formatted on the right form,
No.
so you can't use it.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. We are just about winding down. I want to make sure we talk a little bit about how to pick a great professional to work with, right? So a loan officer, a real estate provider, what should people be looking for, and what questions should they be asking when they are hiring someone? I mean, besides just saying, I want to work with you, the three of
Mhm.
you. or what-
Besides just saying 480.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But for our listeners who, it's the first time or they've had a bad experience, or the person that
Mhm.
they trusted for the last 20 years is no
Yeah.
longer doing it, or they've moved or whatever, what are the questions they should be asking? How do you know when you've selected somebody good?
Well, I have some for real estate, and I'm sure it applies for lending as well. And I try to be funny and provide value and entertainment because this is a very stressful time. So most of my stuff that I do is based around comedic performance.
And
As far as
relationship.
totally. So where I'm going to give you five things, right? Take them with a grain of salt because they're meant to be funny, but there's a lot of truth to it. So the first thing to look for in a real estate agent or lender, do they answer their phone?
Oh, 100%.
But I love that you think that's funny, but it's so
It's
true.
not funny,
it's not
actually.
funny.
It's not. But I try to,
Yes.
because real estate's boring to most people.
And truly,
Mhm.
some professionals out there are not answering their phones.
You
Right.
would
Yeah.
not
You
believe
should be
Oh,
on our
I
end
do.
of things.
our
Yeah.
voicemail full. Like,
Yep.
how you're in a servant business. How is
Right.
your voicemail full?
Right.
I'm going to strangle you.
Yeah.
So do they answer their phone? Because especially for, we get there's a lot of people coming from out of state. So we're
Mhm.
getting different area codes. You just answer it. If
Mhm.
you're not answering the phone, that means you're not going to answer for them. You're not going to
Mhm.
answer for the lenders that are calling,
Right.
the title agencies. You're just not. And so you need a clear line of communication with whoever you're working with. Another funny thing, but you'd be surprised. Do they take weekends off? Most real estate happens on the evening and the
Yes.
weekends.
Right.
Now, if they do, that's fine, but you need to know about that ahead of time. Does that schedule work for you? 'Cause
And they
this
need to delegate somebody in your absence.
Right.
And-
What does that look like? Is that a team? Is
Right.
that
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what is my relationship with that other person if
Exactly.
it's not you? Yeah.
So
Right.
what's this relationship going to look
Good.
like, right? So does it fit? Market knowledge, real estate knowledge.
Yeah.
Do they know? Could they tell you from a first-time homebuyer perspective, what's the start to finish of this process going to look like? Because I don't know, right? Like as a buyer, not me, I know, but I'm saying, but can they tell you about that? Do they watch market trends? That's boring. I don't expect the general public to read the Cromford report.
But I want my real estate agent to be
Right.
doing that.
But yes, because we have a fiduciary duty to look out for their best interests. So we need to be doing that.
So maybe ask them what kind of education, what kind of seminars they're going to, like how are you educating yourself aside from your required CEs?
Exactly. No, very good. Are you a full-time agent?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't say this, I'm not bashing part-time agents because we all started somewhere. I was a part-time agent. But you have to be very clear about that, because if they're willing to work, if your guys' schedule works, no hard, easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be transparent, because again, this is all about the buyer or the other person. It's about them. We tailor it to them. So being transparent with that will help facilitate that relationship.
We have a teacher at my kid's school who sells real estate
She
part-time.
probably does killing too.
It's great, except she can't answer her phone from 7:30 to 4, and that's when my phone rings the most. So I'm not entirely sure how she does that.
Yeah.
But
where there's a will, there's a way. But but hopefully she's transparent with her, with
and
the
has
buyer,
those
and
conversations.
they're fine with it. So so that to me is a big thing. You need to know that ahead of time. And the fifth and most important, you are actually already asked me, is why do they do real estate? Now, there's no right or wrong. Well, there are some wrong answers.
But which one resonates with the person who's asking the question?
That's exactly what it is. And you took my answer.
Is it because they watch $1 Million Listing or Selling Sunset? Is that why they went into real estate? I really like open houses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all like doing this, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be doing. But what makes us? Yeah. And there's no, like I said, there's no wrong answers, but you want to listen to what they're saying and how that resonates with you, because it could be completely different. I mean, look, there's 80,000 of us in the valley here.
Wow, is it 80?
Yeah, last time I looked it up,
That's
I know,
bananas.
it's crazy. So you want to find somebody that you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people. So you want to find somebody that you get along with,
Yeah.
So
and value is what's important to me. So if it's the schools or it's the community or if it's close to my work, if those kinds of things resonate with them, then they might likely be a good fit.
Right.
But
because no one wants to feel sold to.
Right.
No one wants to feel like you're walking around like a used car salesperson, right? They want to feel like that you genuinely understand them and their needs, their family's needs, their investment needs, their lending needs, whatever those needs are, that you heard that and you're applying it to their purchase.
And it's not just a transaction. It's, you are looking out for their best interests and you care about them. And
Yeah. And someone who's willing to solve problems and not just deliver a black or white answer. So like, especially on the lending side, everybody can become a homeowner. It's just a matter of what it's going to take. So it might not be today, but if you're willing to be transparent with me about your situation, we can make a plan for that to happen for you. A lot of people are just in it for the quick buck and are transactional rather than like, let's build a relationship. Like, I'm going to make this happen for you. I can't promise it's going to be tomorrow. Because if you do that with people, you're doing the long game and you're going to have relationships that lead to referrals.
It's
I know
never just one deal, quote unquote deal. It's never
Jake and
one.
Carla have repeat clients. Like I still get people that reach out to me from New York where I used to sell that ask me for referrals. Like if you do your job correctly and you make an impact on people and they know that you cared, they'll reach out to you forever. And that's really what this business is about. It's not about being the fastest or the flashiest or paying for the most marketing. It's about you were there for somebody when they needed you and you did a good job and you cared about what they needed personally, specifically.
Yep.
So everything that Jake shared when kind of looking for a realtor, I hear that being similar with selecting a loan officer, but are there other best practices that we should be aware of when we're selecting a loan officer?
So you want to make sure that person knows their products and knows what products make sense for you. Somebody who's really going to team up with your agent and actually get to know the borrower and really look into their file and not just fire off a pre-qual because it's the weekend and they don't want to be on their phone. I answer my phone on weekends and at night. That was one of the problems I had with lenders as an agent. So That's kind of my pitch when I'm going to open houses on the weekend is, hey, I'm here to dispel the rumor that lenders don't work weekends. And I'm available to my clients. Like, if you would rather text me, that's fine. Like, you want to meet people on their communication level.
Yep.
And, and you can also, and this is not in my best interest at all, but you can talk to more than one lender because for one, not all personalities jibe. And, there might be a bank that offers a product that makes more sense to you. Like, I've had some clients that go to a larger depository, but they don't offer down payment assistance. Well, Summit does. So I can get somebody into the down payment assistance program where they barely have to bring any money to the closing table instead of having to save for another 6 months to a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, wrapping up. Is there anything that I hadn't thought to ask that you feel like would be worthy of sharing for our audience?
I think this has all been super interesting because I don't think people realize the relationship and how close the relationship is between lending and your real estate agent, what that means to actually have that team working for you instead of two independent parts, and how that really works in your favor when you're trying to purchase your next home.
Yeah, and it's not just outward facing to say, hey, we're use this person and we
Right.
team up. It is legitimately because of the relationship and the caring for and nurturing of the transaction. More importantly, the story and the family or the individual.
Yeah, and I would say also finding people that are connected to the community because Carla's the president of her PTA. Like, she's super involved in her community. Jake is really involved with animal welfare. People that actually give back to the community, they're just going to be better partners to have.
Yep.
They're vested.
Yeah, they aren't just here to make a quick buck and then go to their vacation home in Cabo. They're like reinvesting and they're helping other people and they're pulling other people up.
Yeah. Fantastic. If you could each, and Chelsea, I'll start with you since you're the one who made this wonderful conversation happen today. Thank you again for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
Tell us again your name, what company you are a part of, and then where we can find you, right? LinkedIn, your website, and if you're on social media as well. And then the last piece of that would be, what's the best way to start a conversation? I'm guessing it's simply just give me a call and let's see if we're a fit. But yeah, if you can kind of round it out by giving our listeners all your information.
Yeah. So I'm Chelsea Barraco with Summit Funding. Our office is right in Tempe at Rural and Southern. You can find me on Facebook. I am the only Chelsea Barraco so far as Google knows. I'm also on LinkedIn. My Instagram is Tiny Desert Lender.
Aww.
And you can call me at 518-888-4360.
And it really is just, hey, pick up the phone, call me,
Yep.
reach out. Let's see if it makes sense. And,
Yeah.
and if not, I can refer you elsewhere, but I'd love to help you, huh?
Yeah.
Very good.
I am Carla Magee. I'm with MHG Commercial, brokered by my home group. And the best way to get a hold of me and to follow what I'm doing is on Instagram at Investment Real Estate AZ. I share a lot of content on there about first-time investing or even seasoned investing and what that looks like. So the best way is to read through some of that content and feel free to ask any question. There's no thing as a stupid question, or DM me that question and we can walk through what that looks like together.
I love it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Jake.
And I'm Jake D'Angelo with Delex Realty. You can find me on the interwebs as well. Facebook, Instagram. I kind of suck at Instagram, I'll be honest with you.
You need a
But
coach.
yeah, I know I do. Facebook and YouTube. I do a lot of
Oh,
YouTube
cool.
videos for informational purpose. I try to make it funny as well. So yeah, shoot me a text, 503-209-8639.
Awesome. Well, thank you again all for being here for our
Thank you.
special real estate and lending edition. I'm Karen Nowicki, and you've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks so much for listening.